Around the world, I sold wood in the hood. But when I'm in the street, assume the motivated boom, control the game like boom, ready to rock, clock, dollar flip, sits like a way to block shots, styles way to let my lyrics annoy. If you holding up the wall and you're missing the point, missing the point. Cause don't have seven. I'm the big daddy king. Don't have seven. I'm the big daddy king. Don't have seven. I'm the big daddy king.
Explain how heavy the young lady is. You know what I'm saying, King? Yes, my brother. But I would consider light as a rock a simile because of the usage of the word as. And now, directly from the planet of Brooklyn, MC Light as a rock.
Can I kick it? Yes, you can. 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 Can I kick it?
Yo, next to snap a neck, be big R-O-C-K. Send MCs to me in squads of three. Say rockin' this monster as he really can be. See him in action as he transform that man to me. Enemies ain't caught him, ain't no welcome.
So, I typed a text to a girl I used to see, saying that I chose this cutie pie with whom I wanna be. And I apologize if this message gets you down. Then I CC'd every girl that I'd CC round town. And hate to see y'all frown, but I'd rather see her smiling. Wetness all around me, true, but I'm no island, peninsula maybe. Makes no sense, I know crazy. Give up all the hits that's in my lap, no looking back. Spaceships don't come equipped with rear view mirrors. They dip as quick as they can. The atmosphere is now ripped. I'm so like a pimp. I'm glad it's night. So the light from the sun would not burn me on my bum when I shoot the moon. High jump the broom like a preemie out the womb. My partner yelling too soon. Don't do it.
Hey y'all.
Hey Donté.
It's
hey
so
Jackie.
Good. Hey Jackie.
Hey.
It's so good to be back at the table tonight.
Yeah.
I done missed the episode, one episode that is, but it's good to see y'all's faces. And welcome everybody to the table as well. I've missed all of y'all too. I've been away at work. Tonight, Irving is away at work. So we have the wonderful Jackie Price Osafo filling in for him as our guest co-host. And then Michelle will be with us later tonight as well. So she'll be popping in soon here. But we're gonna go ahead and get the conversation rolling and get things started off. So first of all, how y'all doing?
We hanging in there. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for Jackie. So let me say I'm hanging in there.
Okay, we hanging in there. Jackie, what's up with you?
I'm good. I had a pleasant drive home, listened to some great jams, some beautiful love songs. I can't complain.
Oh, okay. Well, what's in the love song playlist?
I listened to what's that Ariana Grande song? Almost Is Never Enough.
Oh, okay. Okay, Ariana. I was sleeping on her, but I may need to listen to that.
Check it out. I mean, it feels like she was in love, but she said it wasn't enough. And I'm like, but I felt love listening to the song. But anyway, check it out.
Cool. Well, awesome. Well, I know there's been a lot happening since the last show, and I've been able to get caught up on a few things. But as y'all know, we've been kicking some topics around on the text. And so the one topic I want to throw out first is around the whole critical race theory, teaching young kids about race. So what are your opinions about this? And when you've been reading material or seeing material on the news, what's the first thing that comes up for you when you think about it?
Go ahead, Jackie.
I'll jump in. I guess the one thing that's really popping out on the news for me is the whole concept of critical race theory. You know, there's so much in the news going on about when should we be teaching that. And you know, the history of it, it was a topic that was introduced to folks on the college level. And now we're saying, you know, when should we teach it? And I'm not saying that we should not teach our children about racism because it protects our brown and black and disabled, disenfranchised folks. It's a protection for us, so we have to teach them. But at the same time, I don't want to traumatize our kids. You know, I have like 27.5 nieces and nephews. The youngest little guy is like 3 months old. I mean, am I going to teach my 8-year-old Jeremiah like, you know, let's sit down and watch Roots together? No, I'm not going to traumatize him. And he has to get up the next day and go to his diverse classroom. You know, we just have to be careful about how much we give because they have to sort of sit with that.
So it's a deep topic to talk about, is what you're saying, at a young age. Okay. Okay. Shawn, what are your thoughts?
You know, for me, it's before you can get to teaching, you have to get to a point of talking about it. Like, how do you talk about it with your children? How are they experiencing it in their day-to-day lives? I think, you know, the most recent census is telling us that the browning of America is happening at a faster rate than originally thought. So like Jackie was just saying, I think there are young kids in a generation that's their normal. Being in diverse environments, that is their normal. It's the parents, the grandparents. And if you're not even able to talk about it, let's not even get to teaching it. And as Jackie said, you know, critical race theory wasn't being taught in grade school. And the narrative kind of took over what should have been happening, which is how are we going to address the issues that we have in this country? Because we can't even tell our own history. It ain't as perfect, that American ideal, as people may want it to be. And I think that's where the attack is coming from. You should leave people with options to choose what books they want to read, to learn more about certain things, and not say, we don't even want those books available for people to consume. That's just silly to me. It's just silly.
I think I'm a little bit on the opposite end of the spectrum here, because I think back to, and I know you guys have all seen this study where the children pick out the white or the black doll. I can't remember what the study is called.
Yeah.
But they are able to identify at a very early age the good doll and the bad doll, right? And I think the study shows them choosing the bad doll, the black doll, as the bad doll, right? So they're already learning, to me, they're already learning these things from the environment at a very, very early age. I agree in a sense that we should not teach it very intensely at a young age, but I do think there should be some sort of education around it, because Jackie, I know you mentioned, you know, you don't want to traumatize the young people with teaching them some of this stuff very early. But what I also think about is an experience they might have that is racially charged that might be just as traumatizing to them, right? And they don't know how to navigate it, or they don't have anyone to talk to, or they don't have any context around, you know, what does this mean? How is this, you know, how is this person calling me this, and why are they calling me this? I remember being on the playground when I was younger, and I got called a nigger. And I grew up in rural South Carolina, so that, you know, it's gonna be common by a white person. But the only thing I knew to say was, yeah, I am, right? Because I didn't know that, I didn't understand what that person was saying to me, number one, or that it was bad, you know? At that point, I had never seen Roots or anything like that. Like my parents sheltered me very much, so I didn't know that the word nigger at a very, very early age, and this is elementary school, was necessarily bad. I just heard a white person call me that, and I was like, okay. But when I learned about it, I was like, oh man, that was a bad word to call me, and you know, I felt some kind of way about it. So I think that's why I feel like it should be taught early, but not as intensely as people might want it to be taught, right? So I think there should be levels as you grow in adolescence and your mental capacity it should be a more intense. Like by the time you get to high school, you need to be learning the true history, right, of our country, about Black people in this country, full on, no filter, unedited. But I agree, in elementary school, it should be tailored, but it still should be taught.
I mean, I watched Roots when I was a kid in elementary school.
What did that do to you?
You know, it came on Sunday night. And my parents, we sat down and watched it as a family and dialogue about it. I'm from Mississippi, so my mother and father from the South. I mean, I have some stories for you, but we don't have time for that. But I was confused going to school the next day. Like, I didn't know how to process Kunta Kinte and the beating and the whippings and that treatment. Like, I didn't know how to process in my head, because as I think back on it, it was traumatizing. Mm-hmm. Like, how do I go to school and I talk to my teacher? Like, what did you do this weekend? Well, I watched Roots. And how is she going to communicate or have a conversation with me about that? Like, what was going to be her response? And it came on, I believe it was like 4 segments. So we watched this thing for like a month. I told my daddy,
I know.
I was like, Dad, this was too heavy for me.
Yeah.
And even now, if it's heavy for me, I don't watch it, because I just don't need to do that to my spirit and to myself. And that's why I'm careful about what we should teach our children.
Yeah.
If it's heavy for an adult, it's heavy for a child.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. I can admit I didn't see Roots until I was like in the 5th or 6th grade. So like middle school transition time. And I remember seeing it for the first time. I saw it in a classroom, actually. One of the teachers was playing it as a during the class. And that's what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to watch Roots during the class time. And I remember thinking, like, why they got these Black people on here acting like this? Like, why are they doing this? Like, this movie is so boring. Like, who made this? Like, why would you want to watch this? But I had no context, right? Like, didn't even understand, like, oh, this is really about our history here. And this is real life stuff that happened. I had no context about it, but maybe, had I learned some context around it early on in life, maybe I would have absorbed it differently. Elena, hey, Elena, thank you for joining us tonight. Elena says, I worry that the narrative that critical race theory is the same thing as teaching about systemic racism, or as teaching systemic racism is wrong. These are two different things. The right wing is using critical race theory to scare people. And I can agree with that, right? I think a lot of people see that. Thank you, Elena, for that comment. I think a lot of people do see critical race theory and they automatically go to, we're teaching, I don't know, they make up all kind of stuff without actually researching what it actually is that you're teaching.
I mean, most people, let's be honest. I mean, did you know about critical race theory before it hit the news cycle? No. So that's what I mean. Like, it was a narrative that was created to distract from other things that were happening in the country. And when it became very clear that it wasn't being taught in grade school, the train had left the station. And people started acting a fool around whether or not certain books should be allowed in school. And, I'll just use this as an example. Huckleberry Finn. That was on the reading list. And how many references to the nigger word was in that book? A lot. And I saw something on social media. Somebody was tweeting like they had to read that in a classroom out loud. Imagine how traumatizing that is. But wasn't nobody saying, let's remove Huckleberry Finn from the libraries? So there has to be more than just you're taking stuff at face value. It, for me, goes back to, are you even having the conversation with your children about just what's happening in the world?
Yeah.
Get beyond, because American history can be spun in many different ways. But if you're not even having a conversation with your child about the realities of what's happening, then there's no way being taught something is going to make a difference, at least in my opinion.
And that's why it's the responsibility of the parent to start that story. I mean, for me, I was born into the belly of racism. I mean, born in Mississippi, and my parents moving to Chicago. My father being like 21 and my mom being 19, with 3 kids, and they were children themselves. But I remember taking those journeys back to Mississippi and having to do this in this caravan of other folks because I didn't realize we did it so that we would be safe. So if we took a trip to Mississippi, it was 4 carloads of us going. And we didn't stop at certain gas stations. We did not eat on the road. And we even stopped on the road to pee. I thought it was just like a fun thing to do. Like, oh my God, I get to pee outside.
Yeah.
Oh my
Not
God.
knowing that it was my parents keeping us safe until so I was in this belly of this thing. But I always in my head, and my father, he was very strong and very, very clear in his treatment of, you are a Black woman, and here are some of the things that are going to happen to you. And I always said, Dad, the world has got to be a better place. Like, he is probably laughing at me from heaven right now because I was like, it's got to be better than that. Like, I just can't live in the fact that I'm going to just be hated by everyone. Like, I couldn't be in that spirit. Like, that was just, again, if I'm, call me like an anti-heavy emotional person. Because when it's heavy to me, I'm like, I don't want it. Take it back, return it, give it back to Macy's because I don't want it.
I'm with you on
So
that.
I wanna bring in, I think Michelle is ready to come in, and she's a parent too. So I want to get her perspective on this. Michelle.
Hi,
Hey,
everybody.
Michelle.
Hey.
Welcome back.
to the table.
Thanks.
We missed you last month, you and Donté.
Miss you all too.
It's good to
Yeah.
have you back.
For
Yeah.
sure. So I don't know if you've heard a little bit of the conversation, Michelle, but we've been talking about teaching young kids about race and how young should you be doing that or not be doing it. So as a parent, I'd love to get your input or feedback on what you feel, how you feel about that.
Yeah, you as a parent, you have, before you're a parent, I think when you're expecting, you have all these ideas of what you're going to do, when you're going to sit them down, when you're going to do this, when you're going to do that. And then you have them and all that kind of goes out the window, and it's up to them what their show is. Royce is 4. We have not had a conversation with him yet about race. I will also point out, as many of the viewers know, Royce also has autism. So, our conversations with him, we over communicate with him. We know he understands a lot. He's not always able to communicate back with us. So that's a conversation until we know, we can have an in-depth conversation with him, and we know that he understands and we're able to communicate back and forth. We'll hold off on. We haven't had to have a conversation with him. I will say some of the fears we do have, though, is because he does have autism. You know what I mean? In him, there is a social component to that, where if he can't communicate in a setting, or if he isn't responding the way a police officer or someone else would expect them to respond, and we're not there, that's a fear.
Yeah.
That's a fear. I have a soror of mine whose son also has autism. He's older and drives. They have a seatbelt. The seatbelt strap actually says, I'm autistic or something, so that if he gets pulled over, hopefully the officer will see that and not perceive his non-responsiveness to maybe his questions or whatnot as a threat. So that's more of the fear, that we have with that, and something that, we can't control that, and so that's really where it comes in. I know my brother has had conversations with my niece and nephews. He has 4 kids, especially during the protests. Those were things that definitely came up a lot of questions and stuff. And he's always been open to talk to them about that. But I think it's important to have those conversations at home, because you don't want to get to school and they teach you about Martin Luther King and that's it in Rosa Parks.
Right.
And, you come home, you're like, okay, now what? What happened? Oh, wait, am I in that mix? So you want to, I definitely want to be able to have those conversations ahead of time, and talk to them about it. Especially now, I think it's so polarizing. It's so in your face. You want to get the information to them. I also recently have been inducted in Jack and Jill, which is a mother's organization, which is for African-American children to really honestly get them prepared for this and give them experiences that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have had, opportunities to not due to access and not due to financial means, but more so maybe there's just exposure that typically wouldn't be open. Those doors wouldn't be open for us. But it's also a place to celebrate your Blackness. Maybe you don't see other Black children every day. This is your chance to come see them. Boyce is not, there's not that many that look like him in his school, and then he's only 4, and we see that trajectory is going to continue. So we're aware of it, and I can't tell you when we're going to sit down, when it will happen. I don't know. It's interesting. It's a parenthood thing.
I think that's a great point, Michelle. There was so many great points in that. One, I don't think I even thought about like the different dimensions that you have to consider when you're teaching young children about race, as well. Like there's a wide variety of children out there who all learn differently, right? And who all have different contexts in their everyday environment. And so they're going to absorb that differently or not absorb it in differently. And so you really do have to consider that. I think the other point that you brought up that, oh man, Jay just took it down. I was going to read her comment, but Shawn was making mention of this too. But I think the balance to teaching young children about race or them learning it in school is it does have to be taught at home too, right? So I think this speaks to what Jené is saying. Black children need to be circled up in Black joy and liberation. We need to share our liberation stories with them. Enslavement is one segment of our story. That is absolutely true. And it is up to Black parents, I think, and or people raising Black children to help them understand, that we are also celebrated, right, as a race, and where they can go to meet like-minded people, hear stories about Black success and things like that. So Shawn, I think you were saying too, like, that's the piece too that you have to make sure you're doing in the home and not just relying on the school to teach about Black people. So,
well, yeah, because how American history is written, and especially from the Black perspective, one, we're not in the history books the way we should be in history books, and in many instances, it's a very different story. It's a very different narrative. And if you're not having those conversations with your children, and I'm talking about white children and Black children and other children, then they don't have a full sense of this country's history. So even though it may not be in the history books, you can find it somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're traveling down my lane. You are traveling down my lane. And here's why, I sit in a space that is the responsibility of the parent. And this has become, it's always been clear to me, but more clear now since, moving into the space of working for archivists. Like, our history has been recorded. There are people out in the world whose mission is to protect the history of all people, regardless of how it happened, regardless of your color or your background. It is there. So I invite you to go to some place called the public library and find it, because it is there for you. So, when I was a kid, my parents bought these, Encyclopedia Britannica, blah, blah, blah books. And every time a new one come out, like, there's a new one out, time for you to read. I'm like, I'm not reading that. But I also was forced to go to the library. Like, the library is only 2 blocks away, Jackie. You should go to the library instead of going to the playground. So again, we as adults, I'm an auntie, I have to take some responsibility for the mental welfare of the people who come behind me. Yeah. And if they're not getting it in the school, then it's my job to tell them where they can get it and take them there. So absolutely. The public library, and you go to the archive section, it is their mission. It is what they believe in, to protect the civil liberties of our people, of any people. So it is there.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. I grew up in rural South Carolina, and the only thing I learned about Black people or knew about Black people until I was 18 was that we were slaves, right? And then one day we were free. And that's why I got to go to school. That's why I got to go to high school. Free. And I didn't learn that we were actually kings and queens before being enslaved until I even graduated from college. I didn't even learn that in college. I learned it after I graduated from college.
Wow.
So, you are absolutely right, Jackie. But again, I just had never been with anyone who had sat me down and taught me that kind of history about my people until I got out into the world.
My mom was my 6th grade teacher, and she taught some of that history. I don't believe it was part of the curriculum, but she tied it into social studies. She tied it in back to like the Egyptian period, talking about it there. So we learned about it, not as in depth, as I think the schools should be doing. You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot of teachers making individual choices to put that history in there and to celebrate, Black History Month differently. I have friends, though, that went to predominantly Black schools in Chicago where they never sang the Pledge of Allegiance. They only sang the Black National Anthem. And, they were engulfed in it. And which is really cool to hear that, because when you get to college, for us who went to predominantly white schools, it was not there. I did take an African American studies class. There was only like one, with the one Black people that went there. And he actually started a project where he did this book called Blacks at Bradley, and it was basically one of the courses was going back through old yearbooks, looking at photos, trying to find like the different traces of when like the first Black person stepped foot on campus, which was actually at Bradley's history was pretty good at that time. But you know what I mean? He talked about that, and that kind of brought a thing in for me. That's also part of why I pledged. I did join, a historically Black Greek lettered organization. And the reason I did that was to have that tie, to that history, and to, join a group of women that all looked like me and could celebrate and hold each other up from different generations, and knowing our history. And so I started doing those yearbook searches, in the library, finding all the pictures of the Deltas back from 1971 on. And I don't know if you all know Walter Kimbrough. He's the president of I don't know which university he's running now, but at the time he also wrote a book called Black Greek 101, where he also went back and did in-depth history on the Black Greek letter organizations. And I think that's so much a part of the history as well. And that's really what started to open my eyes to how we were celebrated, how we made ways out of no ways, how we created spaces for ourselves when it wasn't offered.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a good point, and a good pivot point to the next topic, and talking about, the people we've been looking up in history who were, the people who really opened the doors for us, and who were really like breaking down barriers for us. But with that comes at a cost, right? It comes at a cost of exhaustion. It comes at a cost of, really being knocked down and sometimes not being able to get back up. So I want to talk a little bit about, I know Shawn, you guys might have touched on this subject on the last one, but I want to bring it back up again, because I know this is one of the things we were talking about via text too, around Black burnout. And when you are, I think, Michelle, you mentioned being a transformational leader, and being a Black leader in general, how exhausting that can be. So Michelle, I'm gonna kick it over to you first to give us some thoughts to bounce off of.
Yeah, I'm burnt out. It's also part of me getting on this the show late. I am currently in San Diego, supposed to be in Chicago. The airports aren't ready.
Wow.
Been here for a week already, a week-long realtor conference. First national convention I've been back to in 2 years since COVID. But I think the burnout, I think we all felt it, and we talked about it, when we started this show, the burnout we felt from, everybody calling and texting us, asking us, what do we think about George Floyd? What are we going to do? How are we going to help? How a lot of us were speaking out, and we were talking about who was speaking out, who wasn't, who was protecting their peace, who felt obligated to speak out. And I've been one of those people that's always felt obligated to speak out, but also had a desire to speak out, wanted to speak out. And, we've been doing this before, but it was more magnified over the last years. And the exhaustion was there before, but it's all magnified in a new way over the last 2 years. And COVID kind of gave us, I think, a little bit of an opportunity to do those conversations in the comfort of our own homes, behind our computer screens and, whatever we needed to do. And now that we're back on the road, and traveling and conference season is back, it's intense. And, for me, the burnout has just come from speaking about this subject and then at the same time doing my job, being a mom, being a wife, and then dealing with my own microaggressions that come every day, dealing with my own things that pop up. And I was had to take some time out, and I, went and stayed in a hotel alone and took some time to just understand like what was going on. And I read an article about how transformational leaders, which are people that really want to transform others, and help other people rise, how giving you are, of that time, how much you want to help, how much you want to share and bring others along. And each time you do that, each time you step on that gas pedal, you're using up your gas. Eventually, you hit E. And if you don't go fill up your tank, you're running on fumes. And I found myself, running on fumes. And this week, I got a chance to speak at my first National Association of Realtors annual meeting. I've spoken for them many times before. This is the first full annual meeting. We had about 11,000 attendees here. And we did a session, of course, on diversity. But I had a different lens this time. I brought in a white woman who could talk about, how she's transformed. She's definitely a transformational leader. How she's brought in people of color at the management level and higher. We had a commercial real estate broker that came in, a Black male, that talked about the hurdles he had to jump through to get to a place of now being a partner in a national firm. And, and I spoke about it from the association side. But just the preparation in that takes you back, right? It takes you back to everything why you have to speak on this in the first place. And I have such a desire to want to, and I love it. And it was invigorating. It was, adrenaline rushing. But if you're already doing it on fumes, when you're done, that adrenaline's gone, and you still don't have any gas.
You're passy. Yeah, you passy.
So you're passy. Yeah. So I think, like, Shawn, you always talk about how you're protecting your peace, and Shawn will turn you off in a second. Like,
I remember that episode.
like
I'm not explaining anything.
Peace, whereas I think other times it's a good example of setting up our boundaries. So many, I feel like Black leaders are transformational leaders. We, especially for our own people, we want others to have it better than we had it and have it easier. Right. And so I guess the topic I'm just throwing out there is like, have you all experienced that? Have people in the audience experienced that? How do you recharge? What do you do? Because, I found different tips on what to do. But I love to hear from everybody else first.
Jackie, you want to jump in?
I was sharing a story with Donté and Shawn about, being in my position for almost 6 months. And maybe about a month ago, I had like a tough day. And I wanted to, I described myself as a, you take a Coca-Cola bottle of, and you shake it up. And you know that if you take the top off, it's going to go. And that's how I felt. And it was about technology. So, I spoke to this person. I was like, and I had to close my eyes and breathe in because I wanted to cry. And, my mother, Katie, would say, if you're going to cry, go to the bathroom, cry, wash your face, and get back out there. But I knew that if I went in the bathroom and I let it out, it was going to be out there when I came back. So I said, hold it in, girl, hold it in. And I just quietly said to the person, here's what I need. I need it now. I don't need a temporary fix. I need a permanent fix. And I closed my eyes because I was afraid to open my eyes. And I took deep breaths as I was doing it because that pop bottle was it was like right here. Like,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the thing that fills me, that sort of re-energized me, Michelle, I said, you know, when I leave, I'm going to call my nephew. Because there's, you know, as a parent, I'm sure you know, it's something about a child's voice. And as soon as I got in the parking lot, I mean, I didn't even like pull out the parking lot. I called my brother. I was like, I need to talk to Jeremiah. He was like, what? I was like, I need to talk to Jeremiah. He's like, okay, here's your kid. And I was like, hi, Jeremiah. He's like, hi, Auntie Jackie. How are you? We went on a field trip downtown. I said, oh, I work downtown. He was like, I'm sure we were by your office. Are you near Wacker Drive? And I was like, no, babe. He said, well, I'm sure we passed your office. But anyway, how's your day going? I hope it went well. And it was just having a conversation with an 8-year-old child that sort of said, okay, Jackie, it's going to be all right. Mm-hmm. And it was just a care of another person. And the thing is that it was a small person. So I know when I'm having those critical moments, I need to call a small kid in my family, because somehow, somewhere, they're going to bring me back to sort of like this normal space. And they're going to give me care. And it re-energizes me.
And it's pure, and it's innocence, and it's coming from a good place.
Yes, it is. And you said it, Shawn. It's 100% pure. Mm-hmm. And every time he gets off the phone, he's like, okay, Jackie, Auntie Jackie, I love you. Talk to you later. When are we going to have a sleepover? It's been 2 years. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I need to have a sleepover with an 8-year-old and his new brother who's like 3 months. Like, we need to have a sleepover. So, you know.
Yes.
So here's what I appreciate that. And Michelle, I don't know if you've been in that situation, especially as a CEO, because I think that's where you get into a space where we all have to be mindful. And I think we have conditioned ourselves to kind of be at least self-aware to know when we got to pull out. Because if we unleash, then we get that label of you're emotional, or you're an angry Black man or woman. And it's not the same for our counterparts, you know, and there's no grace given. So for Jackie, I think if you had unleashed, it would have been a very different situation, and you probably wouldn't have gotten the outcome that you needed. And everybody looking at you like, what happened? Like, she just lost her, you know what, kind of thing. And it's just sad that we have to still deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I definitely have protection around that. And it goes back to diversity. I got a great, diverse, racially diverse, like every layer diverse board, staff, membership, and I feel protected around that. So when I do get to this space, a lot of them see it before I do, which is a cool thing, you know, that they know me. And they'll guard me. You know, I even had a past president just at our dinner here in San Diego that, you know, somebody pushed me, took me there. And he said, what do you need? I said, I need you to stand right here so no one will come talk to me, so I can just have a moment. And he did. You know what I mean? White male. I didn't have to explain anything. I didn't have to get labeled by anything. He just stood there. And then when he said, I'm going to get you a drink, he passed the baton to another white male to stand there. He's like, what do you need? He said, just stand there so no one talks to us, so you can have a moment. And they didn't ask any questions. And that, you know, I am so blessed to have that. And I feel like that's an anomaly, because
that is.
That does not happen.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm
sure.
Well, the other part of my story was the white male in my office said to me, Jackie, if it wasn't inappropriate, I'd give you a hug today. And I said, thank you for that. You know, and that was enough. I said, thank you. I appreciate that.
Wow. I know for me, so that's part of why I transitioned to Charlotte, to have, Michelle, sort of what you have, but in a family aspect, right? So I did have my network in DC, but as you guys know, like being the first Black person for any organization, being the first Black leader for any organization, especially when you're trying to take that organization through change, well, it's a heavy lift, right? And I found myself not being good at establishing the barriers for work, or, you know, just saying, okay, if I work on the weekend, I'll be able to get this behind me. Then the weekend turns into working multiple weekends, and then the next thing you know, you're underwater and all of it. And I just found it becoming unhealthy for me in the space I was in, especially being in the pandemic, because the only other choice I had to do was work, right? So I couldn't go anywhere or do anything, but I could always work. So for me, I made a conscious decision just to say, okay, I need to change some things, establish some barriers. What's going to fill me up? For me, it's being around my family, like you, Jackie, spending time with my nephew and niece, because they're so silly that it makes me be silly too, right? So I get to stop thinking about being an adult and just being silly with them. It takes me out of the headspace of being at work or thinking about what next move I need to make for work or something like that. But it can be exhausting. And if you don't, establish really good boundaries and barriers or boundaries for yourself, it can have a negative impact on your health, on everything. Because that's the other thing I started to notice too. My health was not being great. I was eating bad, and so yeah, you really do have to have a good balance. I'm happy to hear, Michelle, you have people around you though that are holding you up.
Luck.
Little shop therapy doesn't, there's nothing wrong with shop therapy. So
yeah, who said they go to Home Goods? I am.
Yes.
Somebody said, yeah.
I go to Ross, Marshalls, TJ Maxx. There's a Marshalls down the street. There, I am with you.
Wanda said the treadmill
desk
is an outlet when I need a moment to gather my thoughts. Plus, I get steps in. The more agitated I am, the more steps I take.
I bet you be walking fast.
Fast and hard, like
right.
Donté, you hit something though. You start talking about health. And I think that is what I noticed that too. Like your health starts to change and you start to have problems. You're like, when did I start having a thyroid issue? Or why do I have this? Why do I have that? And it's all stress related. All stress related. Yep. And it's like, what do you do? That you don't want to get to the point where that's your wake up call. Stress does it. So, we have to step back, and then you wonder why Black people have so many health issues. So many of it's related to stress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And being comfortable with telling other people what you need. And sometimes that is, I need to be by myself. I need you to leave me alone. And just do what you got to do, and find those things that bring you joy.
I love music. I absolutely love music.
Oh, yeah.
I will put on my headphones sitting in my office, and I will jam out to a song and close the door and dance it out.
Yeah, I love that.
I love music. I love songs. Like, I should have been a love song myself. Like, really, if I were a love song, it would just be called Jackie. Just Jackie.
Do you guys have a go-to song that you play to like immediately get you in a better mood? Or
mine's like trap music or the artists we can't talk about.
I have some of that too.
What's your...
I'm not going to tell you the song that I love the most.
Okay.
Because you won't believe that I love this song. Or maybe I should just tell you.
Go ahead and tell us then. Tell us.
It's bad. It's called Sugar Daddy.
Sugar Daddy?
Yes, it's bad.
What kind of music is this, Jackie? Is this like a blues song? Or
no?
This is trap. We talking about trap music?
Yes. And I know all the words. So when you play it, say yes.
Oh my God.
Jackie's. My niece said, Auntie Jackie, you should be ashamed of yourself. She's 30. She said, I cannot believe you're listening to this. I'm like, girl.
Own it. That's your thing.
Oh my gosh. My go-to is Stevie Wonder As. That automatically puts me in a better mood. Like, I don't know what it is, but that song just puts me in a much better mood than I'm ever in.
That's kind.
Yeah, tell us what your go-to songs are to change the mood.
So you're saying we shouldn't be doing aggressive songs?
Hey, whatever works for you, I think. for me, that's just what it is. I do aggressive songs when I'm trying to get ready for like a conference or speaking.
Right.
You need that hype music.
I put on the Chronic, Snoop Dogg and Dr. and it's on. I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone.
Yeah,
So,
I like Bia Bia.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That'll get you hype. That definitely gets you hype. And then
Shawn, what's your song?
I don't know if I have a song. I mean, people who know me well know that I like house music, so it's just that's a whole vibe.
That's a whole vibe.
I just go into a zone with house music, and it takes me to a place. So, yeah.
All right,
look at Sydney with Brick House. I
love it.
That'll do it for you, though. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, so we're at about 45 minutes in, you guys. Do we want to approach another topic or do we want to wait?
What do the people in the audience think? Who's with us?
Does anybody want to hear us talk about the next topic, which is going to be weaponizing tears?
That's a little heavy.
I
don't know if I want
to end
on that.
songs. I'm good.
Okay, all right. We gonna wrap then on these song selections.
Meek Mill. I do want to go back to Natasha. One of her posts when she was talking about what she does to decompress and everything.
Yeah.
She said, "I tell my husband to take our daughter." I just want to shout out to our newlywed Natasha. I saw that. I had to say, "Ooh."
Congratulations, Natasha.
Congrats.
Footloose, Janelle
Monáe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love it, Elena. Footloose. That you can go there with that one.
Yes.
Love it.
Anything Beyonce.
Now that you are, let me ask you this question. Now that you are kind of back in the swing of things with travel and going to meetings and conferences, how are you transitioning? Like, or did you just kind of jump in head first? Because, that's my fear. There's pre-pandemic life, and then there was, and I have not returned to pre-pandemic life, and I'm not looking forward to going back to that. So I'm trying to manage my re-entry, if you will, as much as I possibly can. But I get the sense based on, what you're dealing with now in San Diego and travel nightmares, like, it's just rough. there's no lube getting back into it.
If it's possible to dip your toe in the water and do it slowly, I would say do that. But I think at the end of the day, the reality is going to hit you no matter how fast or slow you do it. For me, I started back traveling in June. We had a conference in June, had a lot of anxiety around it. Brace actually flew to the destination with me. I was taking Brace with me. So I had to have it together with Brace. He flew to the destination, got us into the rental car, and then he flew back to Chicago. Because it was definitely like we're about to go on a plane. We hadn't been on it. We had not traveled at all.
Yeah.
And so outside of driving, someplace a few hours away. And then just being in the airport all of a sudden, it was rough. And I know, like, my therapist was telling me, like, a lot of people are going through that, where it's almost like you just held your breath the whole pandemic. And then all of a sudden you go, oh man, this is what's been happening. And living in downtown Chicago and seeing it like a ghost town. And then all of a sudden all these people are there. That was very, very jolting. So one of the things I tell the team, because we reopened October 4th to the full staff, and everybody has not come back. Some people are working from home permanently. Some people moved out of state. Most people are doing like 2-3 days a week. But I told them, I said, don't wait till that day to come back. Like, come back, come downtown, because your favorite lunch spot is gone. Starbucks is gone. You know what I mean? Like the office has plexiglass up now when you get off the elevator. And those things mess with your psyche. Because we have people that left March 13th, 2020, and haven't been back in the office. And they get back and their calendar is still on March. So it's really messing you up. But I think it was kind of a ready or not, it seemed like, for the conference season. And once I was in it, I was okay. I was comfortable being around it. I choose what I go to or not. I'm appreciative that everything I'm going to has requested vaccine verification or proof of a negative COVID test. That does bring a lot of comfort. It brings a lot of, the anxiety down. But the airlines aren't ready. They just are not ready. And there's a lot of cancellations. This meeting that we were in, this is the largest convention that's been back in San Diego since the pandemic. And so the airport is packed. There's 11,000 realtors trying to leave, and there's another conference coming in. So it's been rough. All the hotels I've been to, I don't know that I've had a smooth hotel stay yet. And it's not any shade to any hotels. I know I give a lot of grace because I know that they're not fully staffed. There's not room service. You know what I mean? There's not, they're not cleaning the rooms every day. So everything is different in that regard. What I will say, those that are going back to travel, do carry on as best you can, switch to a carry-on life, and have a lot of patience and grace. And it's hard because the things you're used to, the things that made travel easier, like the room service, so you don't have to go down and see people and talk. Now you got to go down and meet the Grubhub driver. You know what I mean? Right. Those little things. I go downstairs and grab my Grubhub, and then there's 20 people that want to talk.
Yeah.
I just want to go upstairs and eat my catfish. But, you got to have, a lot of grace, a lot of patience. It's hard. This is the first week long, so I have to check a bag, hope my bag is, I don't know, saying, but
that's
I think you have to change your mindset, how you're going to do it. You got to change it. And you got to give everybody some grace. The airlines, the airport, especially the hotels, and just think about what they went through, and understand that it's not going to be smooth at all.
Yeah.
Staff if you have to.
Yeah.
But
I've been on the road since April. I just finished my last trip last week, although I now got another trip on the calendar in December.
Yeah.
But I used to be excited to travel, and now I could not wait until my last trip. Like, I literally remember I was talking to you, Shawn, the day before, and I told you I had my bags packed.
Donté was packed already.
I was ready to go because
the day before he was like, my bag is packed right over there.
Literally counting down the seconds for me to check into my flight, all of that, because it is so exhausting traveling now. You know what I mean? It's so much more than what you're used to experiencing before. So yeah, I completely can relate.
Someone said it best. So like, it's almost like you train for a marathon, and how these week-long annual meetings are. They're like, I feel like we all came to this and didn't train. Like you're rusty, you don't know what to do. Like the little things you do to get yourself some peace and grace, it's not there. And it was hard. This was a hard week, and I love realtor conventions and I love seeing everybody, but navigating it all, that was rough.
It's a lot.
And I hope I get home soon. Because excuse the background. I know I don't have backgrounds like this. Well, earlier I was trying to find a background. I tried to get the little backdrop, but they got the military helicopters going over. I couldn't do that. The mirror looked ridiculous. The bed ain't made up. So
well, we appreciate it that you made it, and it's all good.
For sure. Now you can go and get your personal time, because we're gonna wrap it up.
I'm get you some catfish.
I'm going back to the airport.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh,
Lord.
So we have Donté make the announcement so we don't forget.
You
forgot that one?
About December?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So thank you, Shawn, for the reminder. Everybody, just so you know, this is our last show for the year. We're going to be taking a break in December, but we will be back in January with a new episode for you all. But in the meantime, we'll still be communicating via email, via social media. So if you're not following us, or if you're not on our email list, please make sure you get on that list, or follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook as well. And I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving as well. For those of you who celebrate Thanksgiving and who will be with your family and everything, I really do wish you the best holiday. And anything else you guys want to say before we wrap?
Yeah, I'll just say we're thankful for everybody who tunes in every month to support us and those who financially contributed to support us. We wouldn't be here going on 2 years. Can you believe it? Going on 2 years with this show. And, you know, we're going to keep it going for as long as people are interested. But we appreciate you and we are thankful.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for inviting me. Just take care of yourselves. That's all. Find that song.
Back at you. I don't know if I'm going. I might have to look up this Sugar Daddy song just to get a sense.
I'm going to sing it to you.
I don't know if that's going to be my song, but I feel like I need to hear it just because.
Oh my God!
I will text it to you guys. You'll be surprised, but it's one of my songs, so you know.
All right.
It fills my tank.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a good night. Have a good
Bye, everybody.
Take care. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good evening.